Right now on Morning News Now, a debate this morning. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump back on the campaign trail. Both candidates claiming victory in the first and now possibly only presidential debate.
I believe we owe it to have another debate. We owe it to the voters.
Because we've done 2 debates and because they were successful, there will be no third debate.
Plus, Mr. Trump celebrating a legal victory as a judge dismisses 2 charges against him in the election interference case. Also this morning, fire and flooding creating a split screen of weather extremes on both coasts. In the west, heat and wind fueling several wildfires. And back east, Francine threatening more dangerous flooding. We're tracking the conditions, the dangers, and what you can expect as we head into the weekend. Plus, platform partnership. This morning, 3 social media giants teaming up to take down harmful content. More about the new program aimed at keeping you safe while you scroll. And a priceless reunion for a 9-year-old boy and his most beloved stuffed toy. After 6 agonizing months apart, how strangers helped bring the 2 back together after being separated by several states. Some stuffed monkey drama for your Friday.
Exactly. It's a story we've heard before. Glad they're back together. We'll bring you that one on this Friday. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We begin this Friday morning with just 53 days to go until Election Day, and the presidential candidates are again out on the trail.
Vice President Harris is headed to battleground Pennsylvania later today, where she's going to hold campaign events. Yesterday, she rallied supporters in North Carolina. That's a state that hasn't gone into the Democrats' column since Barack Obama back in 2008. As for former President Trump, he's holding events today in the Los Angeles area and then later tonight in Las Vegas. He announced on social media he will not debate Vice President Harris again. Mr. Trump spoke exclusively yesterday with our Telemundo station in Arizona, explaining his decision.
We just don't think it's necessary. We won the 2. I had one with, as you know, Joe. It was quite a famous debate. And then we had another one the other day, and it was both very successful. In fact, my poll numbers went up since the debate. And we think we've discussed everything, and I don't think they want it either. But I think we really ought to focus on running the country.
This all comes as the former president continues to stand behind false claims made during this week's debate that Haitian immigrants in Ohio are abusing pets.
NBC News correspondent Bree Jackson joins us now from Washington with the latest on the campaign. Bree, good morning.
Good morning, Joe, Savannah. So Vice President Harris, she is pushing for another debate. But as you saw there, former President Trump says he won't agree to one, arguing that it's time to move on. Both candidates are claiming victory in Tuesday's showdown and taking their message back to the campaign trail.
Migrants.
Former President Trump doubling down on unfounded claims that Haitian migrants in Ohio are eating pets during this interview with Telemundo in Arizona, a claim debunked by local leaders.
Well, that's come from stories. It's come from television. And some of the pets, I don't know, cats, dogs, or both, but some of the pets were taken by the migrants. And it's a shame.
Trump first making that accusation during Tuesday's debate against Vice President Harris, each claiming victory in the face-off. Trump says he won't be returning to the debate stage this election cycle.
There will be no third debate. The voting's already begun. You got to go out and vote. We got to vote.
I believe we owe it to have another debate. Because here's the thing, in this election, what's at stake could not be more important.
Harris holding rallies in North Carolina Thursday. It's a state Democrats have not won since Barack Obama carried it back in 2008. Trump has his sights set on Arizona as both candidates take their post-debate message to key states.
I think Trump won because he hit all the marks.
I think that she's doing what politicians do, which is try to represent everyone in America.
While most Americans will head to the polls in November, mail-in ballots have started going out in Alabama. And early voting in Pennsylvania, a must-win state for both campaigns, begins next week. And while former President Trump says there will not be another presidential debate, the 2 vice presidential candidates, they are set to face off on October 1st. Savannah, Joe.
All right, Bree, thank you so much.
Well, an Atlanta judge has thrown out 2 charges against former President Trump and an additional charge against his co-defendants in the now stalled Georgia election interference case.
Those dismissed charges relate to allegations of filing false documents in a federal court. The case has been on hold since June amid an appeal by Mr. Trump and some other co-defendants. At issue, the judge's decision not to disqualify Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis over allegations of misconduct due to her relationship with a fellow prosecutor.
NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalas is, of course, here with us on this Friday morning. Danny, good to have you with us. So help us understand what these counts are and why the judge dismissed them.
Only a few counts are dismissed. And the argument, the defendants made a much broader argument, really around the idea that the Supremacy Clause, the idea that the federal government is in charge of federal elections, at least once the electors are submitted, that none of this could be prosecuted by Georgia. The judge rejected that argument, but he did find, using as precedent, an 1890 case, not 1990, 1890, a case that says that something that is perjury in a federal court cannot be prosecuted by a state court, and analogize that to the filing of a complaint in federal district court by the defendants, saying that Georgia doesn't have the authority to prosecute perjury in a federal setting. So that doesn't mean all the counts go away. Only 3 go away. So many of these counts live on. It really is a narrow holding that Georgia cannot prosecute essentially federal perjury or something submitted in a federal court. That is exclusively for the federal government to prosecute if it should choose to do so.
Reminder, we have a rich history of case law in this country.
About 200 years
or so. So how much of an impact is this going to have on the case? How significant is it? And at what point do we see this case actually getting back on track, kind of resuming?
Georgia is a disaster. I've been saying that for months now. The bottom line is there are still counts remaining, and any criminal conviction for most of these defendants, including Donald Trump, is significant. In a sense, it's all or nothing for these defendants, especially in terms of sentencing. But it is significant that the Georgia court has first knocked out a couple charges. Now we have 3 more that are pared down. So as a criminal defense attorney, you're trying to win the war of 1,000 cuts. So this is obviously a very big victory to get anything dismissed at this stage. The standard, the burden is very high to try and get charges thrown out before the trial even happens. But this is only one. This is probably the 5th biggest problem for the Georgia prosecution. It is mired in all kinds of other procedural issues, not the least of which is the defense is still arguing this effort on appeal to get the case thrown out based on the alleged improprieties of the Georgia prosecutor leading the case.
While we have you, Danny, while this was sort of a boost to the former president, it looks like he did suffer a setback in another case. That's after a federal appeals court rejected Mr. Trump's bid to stop post-conviction proceedings in his New York hush money criminal case. Tell us about that decision and what that means.
Yeah, this is a little complicated procedurally, but I'll try to simplify it in that Donald Trump was convicted in state court. He tried to remove the case to federal court after the immunity decision by the Supreme Court saying that, hey, now the landscape has kind of changed, so this needs to be decided in federal court rather than state court. And it was actually clever in the sense that under the law, if it's in federal court on removal, the state court cannot convict him, so it would essentially act as a delay. The federal district court, the lowest court, said, no, you can't remove this case. It's going back down to the state court. Donald Trump appealed and essentially asked for a stay. That's like a pause button from the federal appeal court. In other words, federal appeals court hit a pause on that federal district court order so we can stay up here in federal court. The appeals court said no. And the reasoning is essentially the pause that you're looking for already kind of exists because the sentencing has been moved to November. So a big procedural Gordian knot. All it really does is return us to the status quo. The case moves forward. Sentencing will be presumably in November.
All right, Danny Savalas, thank you.
However, since Tuesday night's presidential debate, former President Trump's unfounded claims of animal abuse by immigrants has been getting a lot of attention. But there's another unfounded claim he has repeatedly made about undocumented immigrants voting in elections. It's a claim he's using to motivate his base. NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley has more on that.
Have a good debate.
Have fun.
On the debate stage.
A lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote.
And at campaign stops across the country.
They're not citizens. They're not allowed to do it. It's illegal as hell.
Former President Trump frequently repeats false claims about migrants voting.
They can't speak a word of English for the most part, but they're signing them up.
That's not true. It's illegal for non-U.S. citizens to vote for president or in any federal election. And there have been few recorded incidents of non-citizens trying to vote illegally. There's also no evidence of anyone trying to get undocumented migrants to vote, according to experts. Those 17 different cities and towns allow people who are not U.S. citizens to vote locally, including in D.C., where non-citizens, even those here illegally, can vote in local elections.
Here at this voter registration fair in D.C., any D.C. resident can register to vote, even if they're not an American citizen. But when they get to the polls, they'll be given a different ballot, like this one, that only lists local candidates for positions like the school board and city council.
I do not have a driving license or a social security.
We changed the law to make sure that all local residents are able to help have a vote and have a say in their government and the decisions they make.
Charles Allen is on the D.C. City Council.
Could you be registered in, say, another country and vote here?
No, you would have to be a resident here and claim residency here for more than 30 days. So we've seen hypotheticals where people throw things like that out, and they just don't happen.
The state of Texas says it's found almost 2,000 non-citizens who have previously voted, but it's unclear if they've been charged, and liberal advocacy groups question the claims. Still, the laws allowing non-citizens to vote locally have sparked backlash across the country and fueled Trump's claim of widespread migrant voting, which have been echoed by Elon Musk and conservative media hosts, and inspired a bill that would require proof of citizenship to register to vote.
If you've seen the form, you just check a box. So non-citizens are on voter rolls.
The right to vote now under an even sharper spotlight as the election looms. Julia Ainsley, NBC News, Washington.
Well, New York City's first Latino police commissioner has officially resigned amid a federal corruption investigation. Edward Caban's phone was seized by federal agents last week as investigators look into the NYPD's enforcement of nightclub laws. Caban's twin brother, James, owns a nightclub security business, and investigators are looking into whether he was paid by bars and clubs to act as a police liaison. Investigators want to know if those clubs were then afforded special treatment by local precincts. Lawyers for the now former commissioner say that even though he is not a direct target of the investigation, he plans to fully cooperate with the government. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has appointed Thomas Donlan, a former top FBI official, as the interim commissioner.
This morning, around 30,000 Boeing workers in Seattle and Portland are on strike after they rejected a contract offer from the aerospace company. The union says Thursday's strike vote passed overwhelmingly. The company says the proposed contract includes a 25% raise over 4 years. The union is seeking 40%, citing the rising cost of living. Seattle is home to most of Boeing's commercial plane manufacturing, and the walkout is expected to bring operations there to a standstill. The strike deals a new blow to the plane maker, which was already grappling with output delays and mounting debt.
We've got a lot of weather to talk about, and we will take you out west and down south in a minute. But let's get started with a look at what's happening with the remnants of Francine and the hot weather out west. Let's bring in meteorologist Angie Lassman.
She is tracking the heavy rain across the southeast and what it's going to mean for the weekend. Angie, good morning.
Hi, good morning, guys. We headed to Friday, and not much of a change across the southeast when it comes to the flood concern, when it comes to the additional rain that we're going to expect. And this is all thanks to what's left over from Francine. It's now post-tropical, but still prompting 7 million flood alerts across the southeast. Specifically, one of the spots that we're really going to watch and kind of hone in on for some flooding concerns is going to be Alabama. We'll see kind of this area of low pressure, what's left over from Francine. It'll still start to weaken, but the rain is around, and we'll see that kind of circulating around it here as it just hangs around over the next day or so. We'll see a flood threat, of course, across Alabama, and then by tomorrow, notice this is not going anywhere anytime soon. We'll still be dealing with the really impressive rainfall rates. We'll have likely some rivers, creeks, streams all running high with all of that rain across this region. So from Florida to Tennessee is where we'll be watching for that. When it comes to the flash flooding today, northern Alabama, I mentioned that, but it really stretches from Kentucky all the way down to Georgia, where we'll see that slight risk. So again, the flooding will still be something we'll have to watch for across this region as we deal with that additional rainfall. Not quite as impressive when it comes to the totals as what we saw over, say, parts of Louisiana over the past couple of days. But still, again, we've got some saturated grounds, additional rain, anywhere from 3 to 4 inches, upwards of maybe 5. 5 is possible across that same region. So we'll watch specifically for places like Birmingham and Montgomery to be impacted. Now, big picture look of the tropics. We've got a couple of things to talk about. So Tropical Depression 7, we're watching it. This is well out into the Atlantic. This likely we'll start to see some intensification here in the coming days, but we're not too worried about it. We've got some time to keep an eye on that. We've also got this tropical disturbance sitting just to the east of the Windward and Leeward Islands. That's got a 20% chance of developing. Not too worried about that either. Of course, there's Francine, post-tropical, but this area right here is an area of kind of development that we're going to watch here over the next couple of days. And I bring this up because we could be dealing with the potential for some heavy rain across parts of the southeast, specifically the Carolinas, as this kind of develops this low and then the front meanders just offshore. So whether it develops or not doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's going to bring likely some of that rain across this region, leaving for some soggy conditions for some with those weekend plans. The big picture look for the weekend, this is Saturday. Notice all the sunshine across this map. I mean, it's quiet out west. You guys are going to get a break from really the extremely warm temperatures. In some spots, we'll still see triple digits across parts of the southwest in a few locations, but plenty of sunshine for folks there and really quiet weather. We'll see the warm temperatures last across the south. So Texas, New Mexico, it'll be sizzling for folks there. Really, if you're looking for the comfortable and dry conditions, the Northeast, the Midwest, the Great Lakes, we're running a little above normal, but 80s, not all that bad for early September. Of course, there's that flood risk that you see across the Southeast for not just Saturday, but Sunday, too. We'll keep the storms in the forecast. But guess what? Sunshine stays for the Northeast, so outdoor plans, make them now for folks there. And then that September warmth sticks with us, too, across the middle of the country. A couple of good spots.
Yeah, if this is summer's last gasp, we'll take it, right?
Yes, we will.
All right.
Some sunshine. Good. Angie, thank you. Well, this morning, some 5 million people in California are waking up under red flag fire warnings.
Governor Gavin Newsom is extending an emergency declaration as several wildfires are burning more than 100,000 acres across Southern California. Investigators say the 34-year-old man accused of starting one of those fires is suspected of starting 2 others on the same day.
For more, we are joined by NBC News correspondent Dana Griffin. She's in Lake Elsinore, California. It's just about an hour southeast of L.A. Dana, good morning. So this actually also comes as a small earthquake hit the area yesterday morning. How are things looking? How are people doing?
Yeah, Savannah, good morning to you. The good thing is no reports of any severe damage. Obviously hit people by surprise. We've had several of these sort of earthquakes over the last several weeks. This one probably one of the biggest we've felt in a while. You probably recall months ago there was a 4.4. This one, I believe, is a 4.7 magnitude quake. It struck just south of Malibu. It could be felt for several miles, tens of miles away. We see videos of people, feeling the shakes, animals reacting to it. But for the most part, people are safe in Los Angeles and surrounding areas.
I think people might be surprised to know a stunning number of fires in California are started intentionally. So, Dana, we have a man accused of starting the devastating line fire. He is set to appear in court today. What do we know about him and how authorities say that fire started?
Yeah, we're hoping to see and learn a lot more when we get to court this morning. But he is suspected of starting the line fire that burned in San Bernardino County. It, at one point, was one of the largest. The bridge fire then became one of the largest. So they are charging him with 9 separate counts. So that could mean that he tried to start additional fires, and they are looking into whether he may be responsible for trying to start others, and maybe that one that started the line fire allegedly could have been because he started it by doing something along the road. We don't know quite yet what, but he's going to be charged with 9 criminal charges, and the DA says if convicted, he could go away for life. Savannah, Joe?
Well, contrast with that, where when we are in some of these tragedies, this devastation, we also see the best of humanity. I know you talked to a firefighter who rescued a woman who was walking barefoot through her burning community. Tell us about that.
Yeah, these are viral images that were circulating showing that woman who was trying to actually evacuate her neighborhood. But on Tuesday, the fires exploded. This was actually the airport fire, and she was surrounded by a wall of flames. Battalion Chief Mike Martinez happened to be nearby in his fire truck. He saw her and immediately jumped into action. Listen to what he said happened next. Did you ever thought you'd end up in a situation like that?
Absolutely not. That's one thing that you never want to see, and I hope I never see one again.
What was that car ride like back down the hill?
For me, it was just it was kind of It was surreal. You know, I got a burn patient civilian in the backseat of my truck and just driving as fast as I could down a long, windy road to get her help.
There have luckily been no deaths associated with these fires, and you likely prevented one yourself. How does that sit with you?
Well, hearing it that way, I mean, it feels pretty darn good that I was able to help somebody.
He was so humble about it all. And, you know, firefighters, this is part of their job, but a lot of people are really calling him a hero. And here's that video. So take a look. So it's kind of hair-raising. It's almost like something out of a movie. You see just this woman walking. He says that she was burned. And I asked, you know, what did she say? And he says, like, she was screaming in so much pain. She really couldn't say anything. He drove her down the hill to an awaiting ambulance. He now wants to know what happened to her. We haven't been able to track her down, but, you know, if anyone knows her, he is just so grateful to have saved her life and really wants to know how she's doing. Joe, Savannah?
Dana Griffin, please stay safe. Thank you very much for your reporting.
To Louisiana, now tens of thousands of people there are waking up this morning with no power in the aftermath of Hurricane Francine. The storm is now weakened to a post-tropical cyclone. It continues to make its way inland after slamming the coastline as a Category 2 hurricane on Wednesday.
Francine hit parts of Louisiana with more than half a foot of rain and winds of more than 100 miles an hour in areas that really still haven't fully recovered from a series of devastating hurricanes in 2020 and in 2021. Well, despite the life-threatening storm surges and flooding, there have been no reports of deaths related to the storm. A little bit of good news. Here's what the governor of Louisiana had to say once the worst of Francine had passed.
We are the very epitome of a resilient people, and it comes from looking out for one another.
NBC News correspondent Kathy Park is live from Houma, Louisiana, with more on the destruction left by Francine. Kathy, good morning. So as you go through these communities, community after community hit hard by the storm, what is it you're seeing and what is it you're hearing from people there?
Hey, Joe, good morning. So southern Louisiana pretty much still in recovery mode this morning. And the biggest challenge right now is to get everyone's power restored. And it could be a couple more days before all of that actually happens. But driving around, especially in Houma, which was probably one of the hardest hit communities, it took a direct hit from Francine. The wind gusts anywhere between 70 to 80 miles per hour during the height of the storm. We're noticing structural damage like the one you see behind me. This is a 30,000 square foot thrift shop, a popular one. We're told a lot of people turn to it. They can get a little bit of everything. And we spoke with the owner yesterday, and he said at one point in late afternoon when the storm was coming through, 8 sensors went off, and he realized something was wrong. And then after the winds calmed down, he came over and saw this. They have made repairs pretty quickly. They put a wall up, but when we were here yesterday, there was a brick wall that was completely toppled over. And you can see the roof behind me, this metal roof, peeled back as well. Fortunately, no injuries. No one was inside at the time. But I also had a chance to speak with a resident not too far from here who had a tree literally cut through his house. Take a listen.
So you were just inches away from getting hit by the beam.
You see the board that broke like that? It was, we moved it, but it was laying on top of the couch right here. But if it had been over a little bit further, it would have came down and it would have got me.
And that was Andrew Short, and he says that he has survived many storms, the most recent one being Hurricane Ida back in 2021. And he said even at that time, when this was a Cat 4 storm, his home sustained even more damage. So this is another round, another big blow for him. Fortunately, he is doing okay. He plans on staying put, but there are a lot of resources across southern Louisiana that people can turn to if they need it.
Kathy, of course, after a storm like this, one of the biggest issues is power and restoring it. The governor actually told our colleague Hallie Jackson the most important thing now is getting utilities back up and online for people. As of this morning, though, about 100,000 customers still don't have power. Have officials given any indication when that will come back on?
Yeah, so I've been in touch with the main utility company here, and they're saying that they're working around the clock to get everyone restored. At last check, it seems like they have roughly 50% of the restoration complete. Keep in mind, this was a Cat 2 storm, and slowly, I mean, this was a fast-moving system, but it packed quite a punch. At one point, 500,000 customers were without power, so it could be several more days, but crews, once again, are working around the clock, and they're encouraging members of the public, residents, to kind of give these utility crews plenty of space as they continue to do their work.
You know, Kathy, we've heard some in Louisiana were just receiving some of their insurance checks from Hurricane Ida. That was the Category 4 storm that hit back in 2021. Now this. What's the biggest worry for people moving forward?
You know, it kind of depends on who you ask. One person says, you know, living here in Louisiana, this is kind of the way of life. And they prepare and they kind of hunker down and, you know, brace for whatever may come their way. And, you know, they stay hopeful. But then there are others who are fearful of what's to come. You know, the hurricane season is not over yet. We still have several weeks to go. The governor even mentioning that worries him. That worries him the most at night. He can't sleep because of what another storm system might do in the coming weeks.
All right, Kathy Park in Louisiana. Kathy, thank you so much. Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, a remarkable rescue caught on camera. How quick thinking by a Good Samaritan helped save a driver who was trapped in Francine's floodwaters.
At first, though, after the break, outrage in Mexico over a controversial plan to overhaul the country's judicial system. We'll be right back. We are back with a significant legal shakeup in Mexico after lawmakers there passed a controversial bill that would overhaul the entire judicial system. Under the new system, the country's 7,000 judges will have to be elected instead of appointed, including those on the country's Supreme Court. NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber takes a look at what critics and supporters are saying.
Protesters storming the Mexican Senate, hoping to stop a controversial proposal that would dramatically change the country's judicial system. They are betraying the people, this man says, selling their vote shamefully for this reform to be approved. It is going to lead us to a dictatorship. The late-night vote temporarily delayed, but not avoided. A total of 127 votes, with 86 votes in favor, one senator announced. Therefore, we have the qualified authority to approve the reform. Under the new system, the country's nearly 7,000 judges will not be appointed to the bench. They'll be elected by the people, including those on the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Norma Pina has repeatedly warned against the reforms, arguing that they jeopardize an impartial justice system and put pressure on jurists to vote for what's popular.
El Poder Judicial Federal no es oposición política, no es adversario. El Poder Judicial defiende la Constitución e imparte justicia.
One of the key issues for judges is that they focus on long-term interests.
University of Miami law professor Pablo Ruida-Saez, a former deputy justice of the Colombian Constitutional Court, agrees.
And if judges become politicians, they're going to start thinking like politicians do, if they're concerned with their next election.
But Mexico's outgoing president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, has pushed back against criticism. He and Mexico's incoming president, Claudia Sheinbaum, say the overhaul will help to root out corruption.
Es reafirmar que en México hay una auténtica democracia.
Supporters of the changes have taken to the streets as well, some carrying banners that say people who have done nothing wrong do not fear the people. We believe that more democracy is needed in the judiciary. One supporter says the judiciary should be elected by popular vote. People will remove those who do badly, so this is a control mechanism. But the law professor we spoke to says people should follow the money.
Elections require funding, require money. And so who is going to fund these judges? Is it the cartels? Is it private interests? And if so, what is the outcome that you would expect?
Despite the concerns, a majority of states ratified the proposal. President Lopez Obrador says he will sign and publish the constitutional changes on Sunday. Ellison Barber, NBC News.
Coming up, teaming up, how 3 social media giants are working together to take down harmful content.
Next in Morning News Now, our friend Maya Eaglin will join us with more on their efforts and how it could change what you see when you scroll. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. 3 major social media companies are teaming up to try and stop the spread of certain types of harmful content on their platforms. TikTok, Snapchat, and Meta, they own Facebook and Instagram, are partnering with the Mental Health Coalition to roll out a new program. They're calling it Thrive.
The ultimate goal is for the platforms to work with each other to share information about suicide or self-harm content that is circulating online and find ways to take it down.
NBC News reporter Maya Eaglin joins us here in studio with more on this. Maya, good morning. So I'm a little skeptical of what an impact this can have, but one thing that is clear, it's not often that we see these companies, rival platforms like this, working together to do something. Tell us about this program and how it works.
Yeah, Savannah and Joe, it's really interesting. The first of its kind collaboration between those 3 social media companies you mentioned, Snapchat, Meta, and TikTok. It's essentially a sounding board. Thrive will be a platform to really serve as a collaboration for these 3 social media platforms. So let's say, for example, TikTok finds a video that violates its guidelines on suicide or self-harm content. It will then remove the video from TikTok, send it and flag it to Thrive. Thrive will then assign it a numeric code, which they're calling a hash, and that hash will then be sent to Meta and Snapchat to try and find identical or similar videos and remove that from their platforms.
So obviously, mental health, dangerous online content, huge issues we talk about all the time. Is this these social media companies finally realizing just how bad this has become, and what do we know about the timing of this partnership?
I think they've known it's an issue for a while, but this definitely signals that they want to solve it. I spoke with someone from Meta yesterday. They said this was too big of an issue to tackle alone. Of course, you both know there are several lawsuits from families also trying to get some accountability from these social media companies and their influence in self-harm and suicides. Just to give you some numbers here, 12 million pieces of content violating the guidelines in terms of self-harm and suicide were removed from Instagram and Facebook just between the months of April and June of this year. 12 million. So it is a big issue.
Absolutely. And that's good to hear that this is working to actually get some of that content down. But while it seems like maybe a big step even in the right direction, it does also kind of sound like whack-a-mole to go after individual pieces of content when new content could be posted every minute. What about the issue of it being able to be posted in the first place if it violates guidelines?
Yeah, of course, there are some safeguards that all of these platforms have posted on their platforms. I think critics would argue more can always be done. I spoke to Common Sense Media, which is a watchdog in the social media and technology space. They sent us back a statement saying, in part, we are glad to see these companies working together to remove types of content associated with self-harm and suicide without proper regulatory guardrails. The jury is out on whether this will have a significant impact on the harms that kids and teens are facing online. So definitely a step in the right direction, but we'll be monitoring to see the true impact of this Thrive platform.
Important reporting. Maya, thank you so much. And if you or anyone you know is struggling, please call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at any time. That number is on your screen. It is just 988.
A new statue of the late Queen Elizabeth is turning heads and fueling debate on social media. Unveiled in Northern Ireland, the statue is meant to be a tribute to the British monarch, but not everyone sees the resemblance. NBC News international correspondent Josh Letterman takes a look at the controversy.
It was supposed to be a dignified tribute to the UK's longest-serving monarch.
I think it's very obvious who they are, isn't it?
But is it? The bronze statue of the late Queen Elizabeth unveiled this week in Northern Ireland, drawing a collective, huh?
I mean, I think it could be a better resemblance, if you know what I mean.
On social media, critics not quite as polite. One viewer on X, formerly Twitter, calling it the weirdest statue ever. Another saying it is truly awful. And drawing cheeky comparisons to Robin Williams' character in the movie Mrs. Doubtfire.
God, it's hot in here.
Another user saying it should be removed and melted down, calling the piece actually offensive. The social media furor itself got so offensive, the local government switched off Facebook comments and seems to have taken down its whole post about the sculpture. Though it's defending the work in a statement, saying art can sometimes spark diverse opinions, but that people who have seen the sculpture in person seem to like it. The sculpture stands alongside an existing statue of the late Prince Philip and two of their corgis.
I've never really met the Queen or Prince Philip in the past, so I don't know if that's is accurate or not, but they look quite small.
The artist, Anto Brennan, didn't respond to NBC's request for comment. But sculpting celebrities can be a thankless task. Get it wrong, and the mockery just doesn't stop. Like this statue of Lucille Ball, unveiled in her hometown in 2009, locals ultimately petitioning to replace it. Or this rustic sculpture of Melania Trump in her home country of Slovenia, torched by arsonists and replaced with the bronze version. And who can forget when this bust of Portuguese soccer star Cristiano Ronaldo went viral for the wrong reasons, ridiculed online and on Saturday Night Live.
Wow, the first question any great sculptor must ask about his subject is, what would he look like if he had a stroke?
In Elizabeth's case, the local government encouraging fans of the late Queen to come see it anyway and decide for themselves.
All right, Josh Letterman, thank you. I mean, at least it's not as bad as the Ronaldo one, so I think it's fine.
Those stories really get me. Like, I feel like it's inappropriate to find it as funny as I do. It's just like, wow.
All right, coming up, a pop star and a plea deal. Singer Justin Timberlake due back in a New York courtroom today in his New York DWI case.
He's expected to plead guilty to a lesser offense as part of an agreement with prosecutors. We'll break down what's next. This is Morning News Now.
Welcome back. Pop star Justin Timberlake is set to make his first in-person court appearance later today, where he's expected to accept a plea deal in that New York DWI case.
Yeah, the singer originally denied the charges against him, saying that he was not intoxicated when he was arrested back in June. However, some reports say that he will plead guilty to a lesser offense so he and his family can, quote, move on.
NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas has been covering this from the beginning, joins us now with the latest. So what do we know about this plea deal? What do we expect to learn today?
Well, we are going to actually see Justin Timberlake in person. Just a few weeks ago at his previous court appearance, I was there in the courtroom, and Justin wasn't there. He's been on tour. He appeared virtually from Belgium. Today, we're going to see him go in there and plead guilty to a lesser charge. This is incredibly significant, you guys, because he had originally said, I wasn't drinking. I had one martini that night, according to the police report, and he was really fighting this. His attorney, Edward Burke Jr., had made a lot of comments publicly criticizing law enforcement, criticizing the fact that they were going after Justin Timberlake and saying that they were going to fight this. And at the last court hearing, the judge really admonished Justin Timberlake's attorney. And now, in the weeks since that hearing, clearly something has happened. And like you said, reports claim that Justin just wants to focus on the tour, focus on his family, put this behind him. So what could we see today? We could see potential community service, some sort of a fine, perhaps some sort of drunk driving course. And, you know, there are fans out there who are saying, you know, this is really hypocritical of Justin if he was drinking that night and, you know, getting behind the wheel of a car when he had been very vocal about people not doing so. There's clips of him talking about Mothers Against Drunk Driving, clips of him saying don't drink and drive on the internet. So clearly those words coming back to haunt him today.
That question of if he was drinking, let's talk about what we know. Police said that they performed these standardized tests and it appeared that he was intoxicated. He did, however, though, refuse that breathalyzer. How does that factor in here?
Well, that helped him maintain his innocence. But clearly, though, that police report was pretty damning. This was actually a new officer on the job, a pretty young guy who actually didn't know who Justin Timberlake was when he pulled him over. And he said that Justin failed the field sobriety test. His eyes were bloodshot and glassy. He could smell alcohol. And again, he refused to do a breathalyzer.
What tour? The world tour immediately became...
I mean, so many people are
an
saying
exchange
you
that we all know
have enough money. First of all, there's Uber. You have enough money to have a car and driver. You're Justin Timberlake. The Hamptons is crawling with police. The idea of getting behind the wheel of a car after you had potentially been drinking. He was at this very famous hotel called the American Hotel with friends. You know, I don't think anybody's going to fully know what happened that night other than Justin Timberlake. But obviously this morning, very significant. In just a few hours at 11 a.m., he's going to be pleading guilty to that lesser charge.
This tour we've been talking about resumes in Newark, New Jersey in a couple of weeks. Does it seem like the goal is just to try and get back on tour, business as usual for him?
You know, Joe, I think so, because after this incident happened on June 18th, he was actually back, I think, at Madison Square Garden just a few days later, and he didn't even really address it.
he hasn't said anything to fans. But obviously, it's Justin. He has a lot of projects, and, you know, he is a really fun, friendly guy. And I'm sure at some point in an interview, he's going to address what happened and probably be pretty remorseful, you know, because according to reports, he's incredibly embarrassed, and this has been a lot for him and his family.
All right, see what happens. Chloe, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Now let's check in on what's making financial headlines this morning. A major streaming antitrust lawsuit finally has its date in court.
CNBC's Bertha Coombs joins us now with that and some other financial headlines. Bertha, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, Fubo TV's antitrust trial against the launch of the new sports streaming service by Disney, Fox, and Warner Brothers Discovery is set for October of next year. A federal judge has temporarily blocked Venue Sports after Fubo accused them of antitrust practices that would prevent competition and lead to price hikes for customers. Venue is aiming for 5 million subscribers in the first 5 years and was expected to launch this fall for $42.99 a month. Sony Music is reportedly in talks to buy the rights to Pink Floyd songs for about $500 million. The band's back catalog includes some of the best-selling hits of the past 50 years, such as Another Brick in the Wall and Wish You Were Here. Sony is also in talks to buy the music rights of Queen for about $1 billion and recently bought Bruce Springsteen's catalog for a reported $550 million. Meantime, I don't know if you're superstitious or not. Friday the 13th makes a lot of people sort of a little nervous, associated with bad luck. So some retailers are looking to help customers by offering some deals today. Krispy Kreme is going to give customers a dozen original glazed donuts for just 13 cents with the purchase of any dozen at a regular price. The offer is good at any store with a limit, though, of 1 free dozen per customer. Wendy's Rewards members can get free hot and crispy fries of any size with any purchase in the app. Customers can also get a small Frosty for $1 through the end of the month. And I'm trying to figure out whether that $1 Frosty would qualify you for free large fries, which seems like a pretty good arbitrage to me.
There you go. I got to say,
Always
I'm
thinking,
so into Friday the 13th, right as it's like feeling fall and we're heading into spooky season.
Okay.
I love it.
It is, yeah.
It is cool.
It is. I feel like it's been like years since we've had a Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like, whoa.
I know that's not true, but anyway.
Oh, awesome. All right. Bertha.
I'm sure we could Google and find out how long.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Bertha, it had been a minute. Great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
As cleanup efforts ramp up down south in the wake of Francine, we're learning new details about an amazing rescue caught on camera in the middle of the storm. Take a look at this video. You can see a nurse who waded into floodwaters to rescue a man who was trapped in his pickup truck. The whole scene unfolding on live television. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch spoke with that nurse about his heroic actions.
With Hurricane Francine hammering New Orleans, the city told people to stay home. This is why.
That water is almost to the window of that pickup truck right there.
NBC affiliate WDSU was live on the air as this pickup truck wound up in feet-deep floodwaters, floating and spinning with a man trapped inside. Reporter Jonah Gilmore alerted police.
Officer, they have a truck right here.
My brother had texted me saying somebody had just driven into the water.
Miles Crawford lives close by. The University Medical Center nurse grabbed a hammer and walked into the water.
It looked like they're climbing out of the backseat right now. That guy just broke that window.
The man escaped with difficulty.
Oh my goodness, he just fell in the water. That Good Samaritan is helping.
As the pair moved toward higher ground, the fire department arrived. Then we learned about Miles Crawford and his humility.
I'm a nurse, so gotta save lives, right?
There's a real difference between someone being brought to you in a hospital and you putting your own life at risk in floodwater to save a life.
Honestly, that was easy compared to what goes on behind those doors right here. We just do the best that we can with the situation at hand. Be kind to others, and if they need any help and you're able to help them, just help them out.
Kindness, exactly what so many in Louisiana could use. Jesse Kirsch, NBC News, New Orleans.
Wow, what a story. Coming up, a sweet reunion 6 months in the making.
A 9-year-old boy back together with his beloved stuffed gorilla after accidentally leaving. When we come back, how strangers and a desperate plea from the boy's mom made it happen. This is Morning News Now.
Welcome back. This morning, we're taking a look at a group of college students who are helping New Mexico discover its wetlands. But they're doing it all the way from Joe's home state, Minnesota. The maps they've created have uncovered resources that state officials didn't know existed. NBC News Channel reporter Brad Hicks takes us there.
Down this dusty road in northern New Mexico.
This is considered one of the jewels.
Stephen Fry is taking us to a treasure.
Other southwestern states have asked us about the jewels.
The river is flowing down.
The jewels were identified by students in this lab at St. Mary's University of Minnesota.
A lot of people don't know who we are and that we exist.
Andy Robertson's Geospatial Services team employs more than 50 students who create high-tech digital maps.
Picture Google Maps on steroids, and they're trying to make determinations of what's a wetland and what isn't a wetland.
The students are so good at it, New Mexico hired them to map all the wetlands in the state.
We didn't know where our wetlands were. We didn't know what type we had.
Now, New Mexico knows where its wetlands are.
We need to know so that we can protect them.
But it's not easy. Many wetlands in New Mexico disappear from the naked eye during the dry months.
We are mapping a lot of dry stream beds and wetlands that don't always look like wetlands.
So when Amigos Bravos, a water conservation nonprofit, wanted to determine where the most valuable wetlands are in the arid state, they knew exactly who to turn to.
We thought, wow, this is a super powerful tool.
Amigos Bravos uses the information to identify what it calls wetland jewels, wetlands that are critical for the health of the watersheds and to the communities and wildlife that depend on them.
It's really a way for us to prioritize and focus our restoration efforts.
And while it's a local effort, it has far-reaching effects.
We're in the San Juan River Basin, which drains to Colorado. And what we're doing here can have an impact at the bottom of the Colorado River Basin.
Important work.
I quite enjoy it.
That's also empowering.
Makes me feel cool. I look at this and I'm like, wow, I feel so smart.
Brad Hicks reporting.
Cool, smart Minnesotans. All right, we end this hour with the story of one 9-year-old Texas boy who was heartbroken after he lost his favorite stuffed animal on a recent trip to California. But thanks to the kindness of a stranger and a Facebook post, they've been reunited. Here's NBC News Now anchor Kate Snow.
9-year-old Derek Silva waited 6 months for this stuffed gorilla, a limited edition toy from his favorite video game. The wait was worth it.
And it's a plushie.
His mom, Yvette Ortega, says Derek and his gorilla were inseparable. She even threw her son a gorilla-themed birthday party in their Texas hometown. But when Derek and Yvette went on vacation in California, his gorilla was accidentally left behind in the hotel room.
He cried for days, and I would tell him it's okay. But he's also a child, you know. A little monkey, a stuffed animal, brings him joy and happiness.
The hotel refused to mail the monkey back to Texas and said the lost stuffed animal would have to be picked up in person. Desperate, Yvette went on Facebook and asked if any friends or family in California could help.
I gave it one more try. I was like, let me see if somebody that happens to live in the valley where I live is in California. I never in a million years thought somebody that I knew that was 5 minutes away would bring me the monkey.
Josie Ortega is from the same part of Texas, but was visiting her boyfriend in Nevada when she saw the post.
I didn't know anything about Derek. I just knew that he lost his monkey. I have 2 daughters, and well, if my daughters were in that situation, I would love somebody to do the same thing.
So Josie, a stranger, decided to go an hour out of her way to get Derek's gorilla, and her kindness didn't stop there. She documented the monkey's 1,500-mile journey back to Texas on planes, trains, and in cars, watching the Minions movie and drinking Dr. Pepper, which Josie later learned were some of Derek's favorite things.
She was like, you know, that's his favorite drink, and that's his favorite show, like movie. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that.
I would cry sometimes with the messages Josie would send me because I would be like, oh my goodness, they were so cute. Like, the pictures, and I'll be like, who has the time to send those little cute pictures with this traveling monkey so I can show to my son, you know?
Finally, Josie and the gorilla arrived back in Texas for a very special reunion.
I was missing somebody. There you go.
Hug. And a 9-year-old smile worth 1,000 words.
It made me happy because I was like, I did something good. It was just a good moment to see a little boy just smile again.
Really, she didn't have to. You know, she didn't have to do anything for us. Like, and for Josie to go out of her way to go get it, like, that's something that not many people do.
Josie's act of kindness creating an unbreakable bond. The two single moms are still in touch and meet up for play dates, hoping to teach their kids about the impact of kindness.
So one day when Derek gets older, if he has children, he could share them what happened to him when he was 9.
And that gratitude goes a long way.
Thank you for giving my monkey back.
We just love doing it every single time.
Kate Snow, NBC News.
The power of monkey love right there. That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now. Good morning. Let's start with the good news. It's Friday. Thank you for being with us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, we are following a dangerous split screen of wild weather impacting millions of Americans. Out west, crews in Southern California are battling several wildfires that have torched more than 100,000 acres. Well, in the south, a massive cleanup is underway in the wake of Francine, as tens of thousands across Louisiana remain in the dark. And forecasters say the system's not done yet. We're tracking where it is heading next. Also this morning, the campaign trail war of words. Vice President Harris and former President Trump at odds over whether they'll debate again before Election Day.
So because we've done 2 debates and because they were successful, there will be no third debate.
And look, I believe we owe it to have another debate. In this election, what's at stake could not be more important.
More presidential politics as both campaigns keep up their hectic pace with weeks to go. More turbulence at Boeing this morning. More than 30,000 factory workers expected to walk off the job today after labor negotiations buckled. We're digging into what the strike could mean for a company already in crisis mode. And later in the hour, we're taking a closer look at a budding trend among seniors using pot for pain, though it might look a little different than when they were much younger in the 60s. Good to have you with us on this Friday morning. We're going to begin with those wildfires out west. More than 100,000 acres have burned in Southern California.
Yeah, several major fires are within 100 miles of L.A., destroying homes and disrupting lives. NBC's Dana Griffin is in Lake Elsinore, California, in an area that's been devastated by these fires. Dana, good morning.
Savannah, good morning to you. Yeah, behind me, you can see the devastation. So many homes look like this, just unrecognizable. The Orange County Department of Public Works is now facing criticism because they say one of their construction crews sparked this fire while using heavy equipment. As fires burn in the hills of Southern California, there are an increasing number of stories of survival and heroism, including the rescue of this woman walking barefoot through her burning community Tuesday night before being picked up by CAL FIRE Riverside County Fire Battalion Chief Mike Martinez. Did you ever thought you would end up in a situation like that?
Absolutely not. That's one thing that you never want to see, and I hope I never see one again.
Martinez says the woman was in intense pain. Adding another 5 to 10 minutes in those dangerous conditions might have been fatal. There have luckily been no deaths associated with these fires, and you likely prevented one yourself. How does that sit with you?
Well, hearing it that way, I mean, it feels pretty darn good.
Some 5 million people remain under red flag warnings. Governor Gavin Newsom extending an emergency declaration across 2 counties after touring the fire zone.
It's hard to put in words.
The Martin family lost their home in Mount Baldy, watching it burn from a neighbor's Nest camera and on social media.
It's hard to lose all of our memories.
It's a feeling shared by many this morning as fires have destroyed dozens of homes. It comes as the area was also struck by an earthquake Thursday morning, the 4.7 magnitude quake hitting just west of Los Angeles. One of several quakes to hit the area in recent weeks. No reports of injuries or significant damage, but experts warn aftershocks are likely in the coming days. Now, later today, the suspected arsonist, Justin Halstenberg, is expected to be arraigned on 9 criminal charges. He's accused of starting the line fire, and if convicted, the DA says he could go to prison for life. Savannah, Joe?
All right, Dana, thank you very much.
Now to Louisiana, where a big cleanup is underway after Francine hit the state as a powerful Category 2 hurricane earlier this week. The storm continues to weaken this morning, but many are still feeling its effects, with Francine now causing problems farther inland. NBC News correspondent Kathy Park joins us now from Houma, Louisiana, with the latest. Kathy, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning to you. Yeah, Francine was a fast-moving system, but it packed quite a punch. Houma taking a direct hit with wind gusts anywhere between 80 to 90 miles per hour at the height of the storm. Behind me, if you take a look, this is just one example of the destruction left behind. This is a thrift shop, a 30,000 square foot business. It was partially collapsed, and this, in addition to this damage this morning, thousands are still without power.
This morning, millions across the South dealing with the aftermath of Francine after the powerful storm system slammed into the Louisiana coast. Some homes surrounded by floodwaters in just minutes. The Category 2 hurricane roared ashore Wednesday night. Whipping winds nearing 100 miles per hour, toppling trees and ripping roofs to shreds. Dan Stevens' thrift shop in Houma completely torn apart.
What was your reaction when you came out here?
Wow. You know, it's just a little overwhelming. The sheetrock fell from right there.
Andrew Short survived a devastating blow, a tree falling on his home, nearly crushing him on his couch.
Cover me up. We just cleaned all this out. But the sheetrock had fell from up there.
Now, 48 hours later, the cleanup is just beginning.
That's not good.
Power crews rushing to make repairs as tens of thousands remain in the dark across the Gulf Coast. No deaths have been reported from the storm, despite hundreds of rescues, like this dramatic scene that played out on live TV.
And that water is almost to the window of that pickup truck.
Miles Crawford, an ER nurse, rushing to save a driver whose vehicle was submerged in chest-deep water, smashing the truck windows with a hammer to pull the man out.
Oh my goodness, he just fell in the water.
It was rising like very fast. By the time I got him out of there, the entire truck was submerged.
Louisiana's governor commending Crawford's actions while urging residents to take these storms seriously.
I want to remind the people of Louisiana that we put out these warnings specifically to avoid these kinds of situations.
And overnight, long lines forming, with neighbors helping neighbors, passing out food and water to those impacted by the storm.
This is a resilient town.
As you can see, southern Louisiana is still very much in recovery mode. New Orleans public schools closed once again today. The governor of Louisiana telling NBC News that he is hopeful that power will be restored. Most of the power will be restored by Sunday. But looking ahead, though, what worries him the most is the possibility of more storms this hurricane season.
All right, Kathy,
Joe?
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
With all this extreme weather going on, let's bring in NBC meteorologist Angie Lassman with a look at what's in store for the weekend.
So, Angie, how much rain can the Southeast expect then?
A good amount, Joe and Savannah. Good morning to you. We're talking about anywhere from 3 to 5 inches here as we get through at least the weekend. So the flooding will be once again a concern. Now, the good news is we've got post-tropical Francine. As expected, the system continued to weaken over the past 24 hours, but still the impacts of flooding will remain with that additional heavy rain. There's the flood alerts. You can see them. They're stretched across a couple of states, including Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, of course, and Mississippi. A good chunk of Alabama is going to see the potential for some flooding today. That's specifically where we're expecting some of the heaviest rain as that area of low pressure kind of just hangs around. It'll continue to weaken, but the showers and storms are still going to be around even as we get into tomorrow. And you'll notice they're kind of sitting over those same areas. So expect the flooding concerns, expect elevated rivers, creeks, streams. All of that is going to be a possibility from Florida to Tennessee with the kind of of bullseye centered, as I mentioned, across northern Alabama, including Birmingham, over the next day or so. Now, as we move out west, we, of course, have been talking a lot about those wildfires. When it comes to air quality, this is going to be something that folks there are going to have to deal with once again today. Here's a big picture look. You've got kind of the unhealthy for sensitive groups for Las Vegas to Kingman, but notice where the red is from Lake Havasu City all the way to Victorville. We're dealing with the unhealthy and then very unhealthy, where you see that brighter purple right near where some of those fires are still burning. This is going to be an air quality alert that lasts all the way through 8 p.m. Taking those necessary precautions is going to be something you want to do if you live in that region. If you live in the Great Lakes, the Midwest, temperatures are way warm for this time of year. We've got mid-80s for Chicago. We've got high 80s for Omaha. New York sits into the low 80s today. 90s, though, for Oklahoma City. We keep the warmth going as we get into tomorrow, too. More of the same, really kind of that warmer than normal temperature trend for at least this time of year before we get back to more typical temperatures. New York City, Monday, 79 degrees, so we drop back from those 80s, but not for long. We'll continue to see those conditions, guys, for at least the next couple of days. Otherwise, if you're looking for sunshine, a lot of folks got it. We've got that flood risk across the southeast, but otherwise, lots of sunshine, really from coast to coast. We'll see quiet conditions out west, the warm temperatures for the middle of the country, and then that September warmth, it sticks with us for the high plains and that sunshine, too. So outdoor plans are going to be on the docket for both Saturday and Sunday across the Northeast. The rain, though, doesn't get out of the picture for the Southeast.
Angie, thank you so much. First.
Now to the race for the White House. Both presidential nominees will be on the campaign trail again today. Vice President Harris is holding a rally today in the swing state of Pennsylvania after campaigning yesterday in North Carolina. Well, former President Trump is spending the day in Los Angeles. And don't expect to see them together on the same stage again. Mr. Trump announced that there will not be another presidential debate. NBC's Garrett Hake has the latest from the trail.
Hey, Joe, Savannah, good morning. Donald Trump is out west today, mostly to raise campaign cash as this race enters the final stretch. But the fallout from that contentious debate this week is still reverberating along the campaign trail, with Donald Trump claiming both that he won and that he won't debate again.
I ask you today, North Carolina, are you ready to make your voices heard?
Overnight, Kamala Harris slamming Donald Trump in the Tar Heel state for his debate performance.
It was the same old show. Same old tired playbook we've heard for years, with no plan for how he would address the needs of the American people. Well, folks, look, it's time to turn the page.
The vice president holding two post-debate rallies in North Carolina, a key battleground state that she hopes to turn blue for the first time since 2008. Harris welcoming a rematch.
I believe we owe it to the voters to have another debate.
Donald Trump campaigning in Arizona Thursday, defending his debate performance while attacking the administration over immigration.
People said that I was angry at the debate. Angry. I was angry. And yes, I am angry.
And vowing not to return to the stage with the vice president, despite previously agreeing to 3 debates this fall.
Because we've done 2 debates and because they were successful, there will be no third debate.
Mr. Trump also mocking the moderators and complaining of unfair treatment.
Those 2 people should be fired.
The former president again pushing a false conspiracy theory that Haitian migrants in the town of Springfield, Ohio, are stealing pets for food.
They take in the geese. You know where the geese are? In the park, in the lake. And even walking off with their pets. My dog's been taken. My dog's been stolen.
On Thursday, Springfield was forced to close its town hall and elementary school after receiving a bomb threat. The city's mayor telling the Springfield News-Sun that the threat included complaints about the Haitian migrants in the city.
Back to the debate, there is one reason, or perhaps 47 million reasons, that Kamala Harris would like to debate again. Her campaign says she raised $47 million in the 24 hours following the end of that debate. That's a single-day record for her. Another reason she very much would like to see Donald Trump on that debate stage again. She will be in Pennsylvania today, the all-important battleground state in this race. Savannah, Joe?
All right, Garrett, thank you.
Well, a new study has found that economic output by U.S. Latinos soared by 13% in 2022 to $3.6 trillion.
To put that into context, if the group were an independent country, it would have the 5th largest GDP in the world, surpassing the likes of Britain, France, and India.
Here to tell us more about this is CNBC's Contessa Brewer. She joins us from the Latitude Business Conference in San Diego. Contessa, good morning. Great to have you with us. This was a report by the Latino Donor Collaborative. It was in partnership with Wells Fargo. Tell us some of the main findings and how important the Latino population has been to the overall U.S. economy.
I mean, when we look at the purchasing power alone, you have purchasing power of $3.9 trillion. That's growing 2.5 times faster than other groups in the United States. And what's remarkable, on a panel yesterday, one of the main research scientists told me that by 2029, U.S. Latinos will have a GDP, a gross domestic product, of $5.7 trillion. That's $2 trillion more than what we saw in 2022. Remarkable growth, especially in California, in Texas, in New York, in Florida, where they are spending so much money. What's clear from the report, guys, is that this is a group, a demographic that U.S. businesses cannot afford to ignore.
I've got a couple questions here, Contessa. What are some of the main reasons behind this surge in economic output by U.S. Latinos, and what industries are seeing the biggest impact?
Well, one, it's a younger group. So you have workers and Latinos who are 10 years younger than the general population. What that means is they're entering the workforce at a faster clip, occupying more jobs. They are the economic engine. Two is that they're achieving education at faster paces than their other counterparts in the general population. So we're seeing growth of more than 5% for associate degrees, college degrees, advanced and professional degrees, which is outpacing by nearly twice as much as other groups. So that's why you're seeing so much buying power. Third is that they're adopting technology at a much faster rate. In fact, they're applying AI in their businesses at twice the rate of general population.
Contessa, looking ahead, how much more growth could we see in the coming years? What are the projections?
I mean, what we're expecting to see is that they surpass Japan's GDP this year and could surpass Germany by 2026. So what that shows you is just the power, and not only to American businesses, but it means international businesses will be looking to sell to this group to make sure that they are capturing the profit opportunities of this group. It's one, and in politics, look, we're paying attention to election season here in California. You have someone who's running against Adam Schiff, and he says he's going to just focus on all of his campaign dollars going toward the Latino voters in California.
All right, Contessa, very interesting stuff here. Thank you very much.
Staying with business news, around 30,000 Boeing workers are on strike this morning after they rejected a contract offer from the aerospace company. The union says Thursday's strike vote passed by 96%, well above the 2/3 needed to trigger a walkout. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello joins us with the latest on this. Tom, good morning.
Hey, Joe, Boeing insiders were telling us they expected a strike. Workers are angry over wages that have been stagnant since 2014, which also, by the way, eliminated their pensions. And now workers are vowing to strike at 30 Boeing facilities with production at an iconic American brand now on hold.
For a company already in trouble, this is a big blow. This morning, more than 30,000 workers at Boeing are on strike. Production expected to come to a halt on many of the aircraft line. A significant disruption at one of America's biggest exporters, making everything from commercial planes to military jets to Air Force One. Staff in the Seattle and Oregon areas rejecting a tentative agreement between Boeing and the workers' union.
This is about fighting for our future. Our members rejected the contract by 94.6%.
That agreement included wage increases of at least 25% and other benefits. But workers said it wasn't enough and that pay has been stagnant for years. The new Boeing CEO had called it an unprecedented contract offer and earlier this week urged workers not to sacrifice the opportunity to secure our future together because of the frustrations of the past. Those frustrations have been mounting. It is the latest in a series of major setbacks for the company after that mid-air door plug blowout in January, which led to multiple investigations and a hammering on Capitol Hill.
You're trying to squeeze every piece of profit you can out of this country, this company.
And in July, Boeing agreed to plead guilty to criminal fraud charges tied to 2 fatal 737 MAX crashes overseas.
Starliner is on a perfect trajectory.
Boeing has also been in the headlines for a spacecraft division, as 2 astronauts on the International Space Station who were set to return home on a Boeing Starliner ship have been delayed for months. After the aircraft safety issues, Boeing said it is committed to change, slowing down production on the line and putting safety practices in place. And the new CEO, who started last month, now facing a crisis at the company as workers walk out in a strike that could have a national impact.
That's a lot of people. That can affect the economy after a couple months, being that we're so close to the holidays.
Yeah, Boeing is out with its own statement on the vote. It says the following, quote, the message was clear that the tentative agreement, it says, that it reached with union leadership was not acceptable to the members. We remain committed to resetting our relationship with our employees and the union, and we are ready to get back to the table to reach a new agreement. The last strike at Boeing, by the way, was back in 2008. It lasted 58 days. And Joe, by the way, the new CEO of Boeing, his compensation just set this summer more than $30 million a year. These workers have not received a pay hike, in more than 10 years.
Wow. All right. Tom Costello. Appreciate it, Tom. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, we have another near miss involving 2 passenger planes to tell you about. An Alaska Airlines plane was forced to abruptly stop its takeoff on a runway in Nashville to avoid a possible collision with a Southwest plane that was cleared to cross the same runway at the same time. That is according to the FAA. Obviously, a lot of questions here, but thankfully no injuries were reported. We've got much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now. After the break, some frightening moments on the field for Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, the concussion concerns that are once again rattling the NFL.
But first, a change of venue for the trial of accused University of Idaho killer Bryan Kohberger, where he'll now face a new judge in a new courtroom next summer.
Welcome back. A decision has been made on where the man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students will be tried. The Idaho Supreme Court ordered the trial of suspect Bryan Kohberger will be held next summer in Boise, the state's capital. NBC senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett joins us with more on this.
Hey there, the state's highest court moving quickly on this one to get the case reassigned to a larger county in Idaho. A judge with plenty of experience with high-profile criminal cases like this one. The current trial date, currently more than a year away. Whether that stays on track, now in the hands of someone new.
On the record, this is State of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger.
The quadruple murder trial of Bryan Kohberger now has a new courtroom and a new judge. The Idaho Supreme Court selecting Boise as the new location for trial next summer. Kohberger has spent nearly 2 years in the Latah County Jail after being charged with the murders of 4 University of Idaho students, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xander Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. A judge entered a not guilty plea on his behalf. Now he'll be moved 300 miles south to Ada County, which has a much larger jury pool. The state Supreme Court selecting Boise as the new trial location after a Latah County judge found the media frenzy over the case tainted potential jurors' views of Kohberger, and logistical and safety concerns were too great for the small community to handle.
The Ada County Courthouse is many volumes larger than the Latah County Courthouse, and we just completed having 2 venue change sensational murder trials. So the administrative judge has established a significant protocol for how to handle the cameras, the security, the public.
The Honorable Stephen Hippler, on the bench for more than a decade, will now preside over the Kohberger trial.
Judge Hippler has a strong personality. He's an intelligent man. He is very inclined to keep control of his courtroom.
Hippler describing the preparations for other high-profile trials of Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell in Boise last year.
We have big trials here all the time.
The parents and Kaylee Gonsalves praising the appointment of a new judge in the case.
Find a man that's got some character and some leadership, and let's hit the ground and let's go.
The Gonsalves family wanted the trial, of course, to stay in Latah County, but now says in a statement in part, quote, "We are confident the physical location of the trial will make no difference in the end. We know Ada County is more than capable and more experienced to help us achieve justice." Back to you.
All right, Laura, thank you very much. Let's get you some international news now. We're going to start with a warning from Russia over the use of Western weapons in Ukraine. NBC News international correspondent Claudio Lavanga joins us from Rome. Claudio, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. That's right. Vladimir Putin has warned NATO countries that if they allow Ukraine to use their long-range weapons to hit targets inside Russia, it will be considered an act of war. On Thursday, Putin told reporters that if that happens, the United States and European countries will be at war with Russia, and that appropriate decisions will be made in response to the threat posed to Russia. Ahead of his meeting with President Biden at the White House, Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that it was Russia who started the war and Ukraine has the right to self-defense, but also that Britain and its allies are not seeking any conflict with Russia. Let's go to Gaza now, where according to authorities, there are at least 17 people who were killed after a school used as a shelter by displaced Palestinians was hit by Israeli forces. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees say that 6 of its employees are among the dead. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that school was housing about 12,000 people when it was bombed and accused Israel of dramatic violations of international humanitarian law, saying also that the strikes need to stop now. And let's end this tour of the world back here in Italy, where Pope Francis later today will return from his epic journey across Southeast Asia. For the past 12 days, the Pope traveled to Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, East Timor, and now Singapore. On the flight back to Rome, he's expected to hold the traditional in-flight press conference before he returns home to the Vatican, where he will be able to finally get some well-deserved rest. Savannah?
All right, Claudio, thank you so much. Well, now to the NFL and a concerning incident at last night's matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins' young quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, who suffered the 3rd concussion of his NFL career, had a scary moment on the field. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kurz joins us now from outside the Dolphins' Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. Jesse, good morning.
Savannah, good morning. Tagovailoa's head coach says the 26-year-old star quarterback was in good spirits after the collision, but this is yet another frightening head injury, bringing up a reminder of the dangers of playing football.
This morning, another frightening moment for NFL star Tua Tagovailoa after the Miami Dolphins quarterback, who has suffered from a string of head injuries on the field, left last night's game against the Buffalo Bills with yet another concussion. Late in the 3rd quarter, Tagovailoa, scrambling for a first down, collided headfirst into Bills safety Damar Hamlin. He remained down for a few moments, moving his hands and arms in a response often connected to concussions. He was attended to on the field before exiting with a noticeable limp, but under his own power. Miami's head coach, Mike McDaniel, who kissed Tua on the head as he left the field, concerned.
I was just worried about my guy.
While Tagovailoa did not miss a game in 2023, he did suffer a series of concussions in 2022, including this hard hit during a game against the Buffalo Bills. He returned to that game, but just 4 days later was sacked again, suffering a scary concussion that shocked the sports world and raised questions about whether he came back too soon. The QB laying on the field for more than 7 minutes and making a similar movement echoed in last night's injury. Now some in the sports world calling for his retirement.
If I'm him at this point, I'm seriously considering retiring from football. This is something that can affect you long term.
Damar Hamlin, who collided with Tagovailoa and, of course, became a household name after his own frightening on-field injury, took to social media, writing in part, quote, "sending you strength and healing for a speedy recovery." Savannah?
All right, Jesse, thank you very much. Well, coming up, takeout titans rejoice because it's looking like all those fast food steals and deals are here to stay for at least now. After the break, how hungry customers are reacting to the latest value meals as companies race to keep Americans coming back to that drive-through lane. That's up next. Stay with us. We are back now with a bit of a throwback this morning. Old school office supplies and school supplies are making a comeback. And kids of all ages want to get their hands on things like sticker books, stationery kits, and 3-ring binders. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock joins us with more on some of the 90s brands that are trending all over again. I have a feeling this is kids and their parents want to get their hands on.
Everyone is in on the action. It is deja vu, Savannah, all over again. We remember a lot of these things from our childhood. You know, good morning. School supplies are a multi-billion-dollar industry in the United States, with households spending on average $140 on them every single year. But with retro-themed office and school supplies staging a resurgence, the nostalgia is appealing to adults and their kids alike.
They say everything old is new again, and apparently that's very true these days when it comes to office and school supplies.
Oh my gosh, you guys. 90s kids unite.
Gen X and millennial shoppers posting their glee onto social media with their old school finds.
When it comes to organization, you either got it or you don't.
Remember the Trapper Keeper? The popular retro binder that all the cool kids had is making a comeback on store shelves nationwide.
It kept papers and this and that, and I'm explaining what a Trapper Keeper is.
And it's not just the adults buying in. According to Axios, nostalgic-style school supplies are popular with kids, too. Marketing experts say the rush for retro is like comfort food for consumers.
People prefer or turn to nostalgic items, especially in times where things might seem a little bit chaotic, because they connect the past with the present. This gives us kind of a sense of stability and self-continuity.
And 90s brands like Caboodles and Lisa Frank now being introduced to a new generation. Celebs like Taylor Swift even using an old school typewriter in a TikTok to reveal new song lyrics earlier this year. But others like Dolly Parton never gave up the old way.
Dolly does not text.
The Queen of Country is famously known for using what's now considered an archaic form of technology.
Every time I coordinate and kind of communicate with Dolly, it's still through fax.
Even to her goddaughter, Miley Cyrus.
We do use the phone, but she does a fax, and then someone scans the fax, and then they put it into a text message, and then that gets sent to me.
Amy Webb owns the sticker shop in Cincinnati. She says it's all about creating a bridge between the past and present for her customers.
It has really been cross-generational. I do think that Gen X, like, we are in our nostalgia era. I think for younger kids, one of the cool things is that they are not used to seeing these kind of shops.
While we are talking about the nostalgic era, another reason for this movement, so the parents are nostalgic for the old times. So what does that mean? They're buying the items for their kids. But if you think these items are cheaper just because they're older, not in all cases. We looked up a Lisa Frank Trapper Keepers and found this on Poshmark. You want to take a guess how much that is, Savannah? Listed for?
I don't know. Tell me.
$255 for a Trapper Keeper with a unicorn.
What is a Trapper Keeper?
You know, so funny. I kind of had the same reaction to it. They were a thing. You put all your papers and loose leaflets and all that stuff in there, and it was a huge in the 80s and the 90s.
Why are you calling it a folder?
Because it basically is. That's what they were called back in the day.
No.
It's not just that. You're also talking about like those big block erasers. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
They would like leave
those.
a trail behind them, but they were really effective. Or like the mechanical pencils.
They were effective. Sam says.
They got the job done. But people are like all back in that moment.
I was a major Lisa Frank girly. I don't remember calling it a Trapper Keeper. Julian, our stage manager, who's younger than me, does say she does that.
It's literally the signature product that she made, but sure. We
don't
remember that, but we remember
when
Lisa
I was
Frank.
making I did my wedding guest list by hand because I was just like, I don't know, it's just like something I felt like I had to write out, you know, and then like be able to like cross out, sorry for people, whatever. And I bought a Lisa Frank notebook to do it in because I was like, I just wanted it to be something kind of fun. And my husband was like, why do you have that children's notebook with a tiger on the front?
I feel like it's come full circle for everybody.
There you go. I was into it.
It's comfort,
I was sucked in. I wanted that particular notebook. Sam Brock, thank you. That was a fun one. Thanks for dressing up to bring us.
Thanks for playing along. Yeah, exactly, my tie.
Okay, if you thought the summer of value food deals has ended, think again. Not only are new discount meals popping up, but consumers are still in the driver's seat, in the drive-through lane, and at fast casual restaurants, actually, too. NBC News senior business correspondent, also known self-proclaimed fast food correspondent, Christine Romans has her details.
Hey, good morning. For months now, we've been talking about the summer of savings, big chain restaurants trying to bring customers back with good deals. Well, it worked, and now they're keeping the discounts going as the battle for your business heats up heading into the fall.
At chains across the country, dining out is in.
Juicy beef and melty cheese. All these toppings will make you say sheesh.
Fast food establishments reclaiming their reputation for low prices with the deals that just keep on coming. McDonald's now extending its popular $5 value meal through December, plus offering special deals for National Cheeseburger Day next week, and in November, 10 nuggets for just $1.
I know we appreciate this meal deal in my family of 3.
Dunkin' diving in too with a sandwich, hash browns, and medium coffee for just $6. And at Dairy Queen, as temperatures drop, so are blizzard prices. The chain rolling out a buy one, get one deal. It comes as more than 80% of Americans now consider a drive-through meal a luxury. That's according to a recent Lending Tree survey. And food away from home up 4% from this time last year, according to the latest data.
Consumers have become much more discerning and careful how they balance their budgets, but that's not defeated them.
And casual restaurants have taken note. Applebee's kicking off the football season with 50-cent wings and cocktail specials. Its CEO looking for ways to stand out among the competition.
So we know right now that our guests are looking for value, and what we don't offer is getting your burger in a bag, but it's the experience that we offer.
Over at Chili's, a $10.99 meal deal accounted for about 60% of sales growth last quarter. And now with family fall routines in full swing and kids back in school, new grocery deals are popping up too. Amazon now planning a Savor brand of groceries with most items priced under $5. And Prime members get an additional 10% off, going head to head with low-cost labels at Walmart, Target, and Aldi's, all competing for consumers hungry for a discount.
And for those stocking up at the grocery store, make sure you join the membership programs to redeem points at checkout. And it's old school, but make sure you still check those weekly flyers to see what's on sale, guys.
All right, Christine, keeping us up to date on the latest fast food news always. Thank you. Coming up, you could say it's not your grandma's marijuana. After the break, why more and more seniors are turning to pot for pain. We're weighing the risks and benefits of this budding new trend among older Americans. The doctor is in up next.
Welcome back. This morning, we're looking at the growing popularity of marijuana among the seniors set. More and more older adults are turning to cannabis for medical reasons. For some of these baby boomers, you could say they're reuniting with a drug that they first got acquainted with as young hippies, but other seniors are actually trying it for the first time. They're looking for something to help with chronic pain or trouble sleeping or anxiety. Doctors say more research is needed, but for some older adults, marijuana and cannabis are making a difference.
To understand how long Ellis Chase has been living with pain, you have to go back to the 1960s, when as a teenager he was diagnosed with arthritis and later a spinal issue, and more recently, neck problems.
When you have extreme pain, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it?
I would say in the last few years it would go as high as an 8.
Numbing you up in 3, 2, 1.
Epidurals, like the one he's getting here from his doctor, Human Danish, help alleviate the agony. But Ellis never imagined his doctor would recommend something that, like his pain, harkens back to life in the 60s.
Then one day, Dr. Danish said, "Have you thought about medical marijuana?" I said, "Does it get me high? Can I be in 1968 again, please?"
He's not smoking it like he did in his younger years. Instead, 77-year-old Ellis is taking a capsule like all his other meds. He doesn't get high, but he does get sleep.
I have more energy, I can work out more, I'm still working. I just have way more energy at times of day that I didn't used to have energy.
Ellis is far from alone. In 2007, just 0.04% of seniors used marijuana. By 2022, that number skyrocketed to 8%. That's a 20,000% increase.
Better,
yeah.
Still not where it wants to be.
Dr. Danish is director of integrative pain management at New York's Mount Sinai Hospital.
I think older patients have an interesting situation. Tylenol may not work. Opioids have an epidemic risk associated with it. Anti-inflammatories can damage their kidneys, and that increases your risk of a heart attack and a stroke. And so they're left wondering, what can I do to help me with my pain? And so they are turning more and more to medical marijuana.
He does have concerns. For starters, because of the federal ban on marijuana, doctors just don't have enough research. And he says the research that is out there is all over the map. One recent study found that cannabis-related disorders like overuse and addiction have increased among older adults.
We have to be careful is that we don't want to replace an opioid epidemic with a marijuana epidemic.
When people are inquiring about this, your advice is?
My advice is view medical marijuana like you would view any sort of alcoholic substance.
With medical marijuana now legal in 38 states, plus Washington, D.C., popularity is surging at dispensaries like Etain.
Right now, 20% of our patient base is the senior population, which to me is an astronomical number.
Here, pharmacists work with older patients like Ellis.
And you take the capsules right now.
Yes. To figure out how they want to take cannabis, vaping, edibles, tinctures, capsules, or another way. They must also find the right ratio of THC, which creates the high, and CBD, which also helps with pain and anxiety.
I just want to emphasize that it's not one size fits all. It's really about trial and error, trying to figure it out as you go.
For Ellis, a 50-50 mix of THC and CBD right before bed seems to blunt the pain.
If your younger self knew that you'd be using it again as a senior,
I would have laughed. I just would have cracked up. I would have said, for medicine?
Of course, anyone considering this should work with a doctor so you can talk about the risks and the benefits. You need to know about drug interactions with your medications and how cannabis might affect your cognition or your balance.
All right, great report from Joe. Let's talk more about these risks and benefits. We have NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar with us. Dr. Azar, good morning. So what are the sorts of situations where medical marijuana might be more effective than traditional medication?
Yeah, Joe, your piece was fantastic. You really hit on so many important points, and especially as a rheumatologist, this is something that I confront really daily with patients who are in chronic pain or need to use it for other reasons. And you know, Savannah, I think rather than framing it as when could it be more effective, it's really where it could have a place in an arsenal that's really quite limited. As the doctor pointed out in the piece, you know, we can recommend Tylenol, we can recommend anti-inflammatories, but and other medicines as well, but all of those have potential limitations, especially as folks get older. They have a more difficult time, you know, handling and metabolizing all of these medications. So in my personal experience, and I know a lot of other folks are doing this, we can recommend a trial of CBD. And I usually like to refer to a provider who does this consistently so that they can have a real good conversation and be educated about all potential drug interactions and side effects.
What should older Americans take into consideration before using medical marijuana to manage pain? Is there like a certain age range where you shouldn't try this?
You know, there's no actual real cutoff, but, you know, as I said, as people age, as we get older, you know, we handle medications differently. And there's also this thing that is called polypharmacy, where as we get older, we're on a lot more medications. And there are potential drug interactions with blood thinners, with antidepressants, with anti-seizure medicines, a lot of those medicines that individuals are on. I think one really important piece is that a lot of patients may not actually divulge this information to their providers, but they should. And especially as we know that there is such a stigma potentially associated with this, I want patients to feel empowered that they can have a conversation with their providers about this, and they should.
Yeah, and Dr. Azar, I was just thinking about the fact that in so many of these places, recreational marijuana is legal, so you don't actually need a prescription to get some of these products. But obviously, if you're using it for medical reasons, the experts say you need to work with your doctor. What is just your biggest piece of advice to anyone who might be considering this, especially if they've never used it before?
Yeah, and that is such an important point, Joe. You know, you can get CBD at, you know, a gas station now, but the thing about this is that we know is that it's not perfectly regulated at all. And so individuals might be getting a product that they think is primarily CBD and that doesn't have a lot of THC, which is the psychoactive substance, and that may not be true at all. My guidance is still to try to have a prescription from a provider to obtain this from a dispensary, ideally in the form of drops or gummies or topicals, as opposed to smoking. This kind of stuff, and particularly marijuana, is absolutely associated with potential lung injury. And anyone who has a history of heart disease, who might be at risk for events related to high blood pressure or arrhythmias, need to be really careful. And you have to understand that there is such a thing as cannabis use disorder, and that is a very real thing too. It is not, even though we think of it as very natural and we have a much more permissive attitude about marijuana, it still is a drug and can have potential side effects.
And we mentioned in that story there, that study showed that is a huge concern right now. All right, Dr. Azar, thank you so much for your expertise this morning. We really appreciate it.
You bet.
Coming up, we've got a special spooky Friday the 13th edition of our Can't Miss list.
After the break, can a highly acclaimed new psychological thriller keep the box office alive on the heels of Beetlejuice's domination last weekend? Well, who better to dig in on the latest and greatest from the world of entertainment than our friend of the show, Brian Balthazar. He is here on set with us right after this.
Finally this hour, it is Friday, which means it's time for your weekly Can't Miss list with all the new films and shows you gotta see this weekend.
And this week, we've got Brian Balthazar, entertainment journalist, pop culture expert, and of course, friend of the show. Brian, great to have you with us. Okay, I am so excited about this first one because the trailer alone looks insane. Speak no evil.
Yes, you know, vacation movies can often either go hilarious or horrifying. This is horrifying. This is a psychological thriller with James McAvoy and Mackenzie Scott. Okay, so these two couples meet. They're on vacation, they meet. I don't know if you've ever hit it off with a couple of strangers on a vacation. So they later decide the American couple goes to stay with the British couple. And this is where things take a really peculiar turn. And it's chilling. The trailer is chilling. This is one of those movies I would say, if you like a psychological thriller, just go. Don't read about it. Ooh. Don't read the trailer. Just take my word for it. Hear me now, believe me later. It's going to be scary.
It's like one of those ones where it kind of feels like it could happen, you know?
Right.
It's not like supernatural.
Right, exactly. Like there's no apparitions.
Those scare me
There's
the
more
most.
you're vacationing with. Right, exactly.
I mean, I don't think it's going to happen to me. I'm just
Introduce
saying.
Savannah to a new crowd.
And which couple are you in that scenario?
Right.
I'm just saying, you know what I mean? There's not like aliens or something.
There's
it's like
supernatural
just
about
humans.
it.
Right.
Just
a
evil people.
moral person.
Yes, exactly.
And James McAvoy plays that very well.
Yeah.
All right. This next one, we can't actually say the full name on television. My Old Bleep with Aubrey Plaza.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I am assuming funny.
It is funny. It stars Maisie Stella as 18-year-old Elliot having a birthday, and she has a mushroom trip, okay? As one does, I guess. I don't know. And then she kind of hallucinates or like meets her 39-year-old self in the form of Aubrey Plaza. And Aubrey's character, her older version, starts warning her about the things she shouldn't do as 18-year-old Elliot. And it starts to have her rethink her life and her decisions. But obviously, it's very funny. And
So it's funny.
It's
It's
a
not
coming-of-age story kind of thing, yeah.
Love it. Okay,
Yeah.
also, Transformers 1.
Yes.
Is this like a
This is a
prequel?
coming-of-age story, and this is how Megatron and Optimus Prime. It's an origin story.
It's an origin story.
It's like
Joker,
very interesting.
I was wondering.
So if Taylor Swift was a robot and she made, I'm just kidding. It's just how these two. It's a completely CGI movie with Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson,
So no Megan
all-star
Fox?
cast. It's basically the origin story of how these enemies came to be.
Okay, so it's not. It's all.
I'll just see you at the theater, okay?
Right.
I'll see you there. I'm sure you're going to be there.
All right. Let's move to television now. Hulu, we've got it's a dark comedy called How to Die Alone.
Correct.
Comedy, though,
yes,
right?
that's Natasha Rothwell. It's
Yeah.
a series, and she's from Insecure and from White Lotus, and she plays a JFK airport employee who's kind of down on her luck. You know, she hates her life. She's never been in love, and she has a near-death experience. I don't know if that's it. I guess it is. I think
Looks like it.
timing.
It's on one of those carts, right? Those are dangerous.
Yes, they are, especially at the airport. And that sets off a trajectory of life experiences that cause her to rethink how she sees herself and how she lives her life. And she's very charming and very funny. She was actually once an SNL writer before becoming a writer and cast member on Insecure. And really finding herself in her personal life is what, because she created this, is what fueled the creation of this series.
Sensing a theme. Everyone's rethinking their lives.
I mean, tell me about it. I'll be here next week with my story. story, okay?
A new documentary.
I figure it out, right?
Yeah. I feel like for people who go through JFK a lot, that's going to be particularly.
Anyone who goes to the airport wants to
Such a
rethink their
nightmare.
life at some point,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, and especially that airport.
Right?
It's like
Exactly.
laid out so bizarrely. Okay, we have a Vogue documentary, really looking at fashion of the 90s. We've
Yes,
got
this
some
is a
celebs in
docu-series
this.
on Hulu. It's In Vogue the 90s, which was really a defining year for the magazine. You remember this is when supermodels were the stars. Now we see more celebrities on the cover of Vogue, but back then it was all supermodels. Linda Evangelista's in this. We have Nicole Kidman, Sarah Jessica Parker. It's all the stars, but also the designers. Tom Ford is in this. And it really talks about how that decade really shaped celebrity, how it shaped the magazine, and all of the things that happened in the designing and fashion world that were really pivotal and really shaped the world as it is today in the world of fashion. It really looks interesting, and that's part of those episodes are now on Hulu.
I've seen Anna Wintour 3 times in person in the last month, and I'm terrified. I've never said
She's
hi.
chilling, right?
Okay, I'm
But I
sorry,
wanna meet
what?
her.
I know, it just keeps happening.
Yeah,
The U.S. Open. A lot of it was the U.S. Open.
Where? Okay. Oh, I actually saw her.
But also a show. We went to a show, too. Yeah. All right. We got less than a minute here. Emily in Paris, the second half of the newest season is back. Don't give us any spoilers, but, like,
What
do we
you
need to know
said,
here?
it's a bunch of young 20-somethings in clothes they can't afford finding love, right? I mean, it's a great story.
An endless wardrobe.
And if you watch the first half of this season, then you know the backstory. So just tune in for the remaining episodes, which are dropping right now. And it's
Okay,
a
I feel
fun
like
show.
this isn't such a spoiler, but just because I'm seeing it all over the place, and I don't know, I haven't watched it yet.
Okay.
I will, but that I think she moves, which is like kind of like, isn't that the? I don't know.
Out of Paris?
I don't know. I feel
Will
like
they have to rename the show?
I have a funny feeling. Right. I have a funny feeling Emily's staying in Paris, but it's a fun story. This is as
Emily
much.
in Wrigleyville
This is
isn't as
fantasy in the
interesting.
same way the Lord of the Rings is fantasy.
Yeah.
When you see, it really is just kind of a romp, and it's.
Well, this was fun this morning.
Yeah. Thank you.
Joe hangs out with Anna Wintour.
Can't wait for that.
I
It really
hang out
sounded
with
like this was a real
potential
drag.
murderers. Yeah. Brian, thanks.
I'll do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.